Hello, welcome to another video. Today I have a different kind of idea for you where we're going to be looking at how you can first of all make a lead and second of all snowball that lead based on the champions that are placed in the game that you're playing, right? So with this, we're thinking of, okay, so what are our champs good at and what are our champs bad at and so on, right? Like who's good level 1, who's good level 2, 3, 4, whatever, right? And so on and so forth, right? And then how the leads that we already have can like be translated. So then, okay, if we're thinking here, right? Azaria could be like okay level 1, not the worst, not the best. Kaisa, pretty fucking strong level 1. Braum also quite strong level 1. We're gonna say that Ari is like okay. Azir can be like pretty decent. Karthus really strong. Jarvan like okay. Garen okay. Darius pretty strong, right? We're gonna say something like that, and we're gonna say okay. So with that, if we consider that, right? In the bottom side of the map at level 1, we are insanely strong, right? So if we're looking for any kind of invade level 1, then the enemy is going to have to respect that. Like, for example, if we walk in as 3 people, right? So Kaisa, Braum, and Karthus, what are the enemy's choices, right? So we're assuming here that Jarvan is on the bottom side of the map, and that's where he's trying to start, right? In that case, well, first of all, he can walk away and go to the other side of the map. Okay. He does lose a bit of tempo though, which is a bit bad because if he walks away from this red buff and just goes straight to his top side, then after I do red buff and say something like Raptors, then I have the choice of going to my red side as well, and he's not going to get a red side unless he just like runs to these Krugs, which means he's only really going to get 4 camps realistically, and I can get all of the camps and I can probably at least secure 1 scuttle, which means I should be pretty ahead. He could also try to fight it, but the problem is that realistically, if you look at these champions, there is not much fighting it. So we can say that if he starts on the bottom side of the map, and we choose to just play, then it's already kind of meh for them. Though what they can also choose to do is to ward early on, right? So like, I don't know, ward river, ward like here or something, right? So I see it pretty early, so maybe the Jarvan can adapt without actually losing time, right? So if he can make it to wolves or something, right, and he can start leashless wolves, at the same time as I'm starting his red buff, that's not so bad for him anymore, because at that point he can do maybe like 3 camps, and even if I do like 1 camp here, he could also like show up here and he could be level 3 against my level 2, which could be a valid idea, right? Could be a way to play, depending on the champs, depending on what you want to do, and so on. Otherwise, we can also say that he started on the top side, right? So if he starts on the top side, then we're going to be looking at something like either they warded this or they didn't, right? So if they warded either the red buff or the entrances or something, they're gonna know we invaded, and he's going to be able to adapt to that by also going to my red side and somehow matching my clear at least somewhat. If they don't know it, that becomes a bit of a problem though, as after I do some camps, he's actually gonna end up behind if they don't know it, right? That is what I choose to do here. And that's why I think there are 2 types of like really level 1 invades, or like the coin flip ones, where you think, okay, well, I mean, I don't know, let's just go and like let's make something happen. Or there can be the invades where you can think, okay, well, we're actually really strong, so why wouldn't we do something like this, right? What is the enemy's answer really? The answer really is for him to adapt to us, but yeah. So here, for example, I decided to do Krug second because I wanted to just go bot lane, and I don't really care about Jarvan. I just want to go bot, bully these 2, or not let them play. I don't care which way really, so my bot lane will secure prio instantly. And then I just want to clear my camps and chill. Really, the main reason why I want to do something like this is because I don't want Jarvan to do like 3 camps into like bot lane or something. It's just quite annoying. Quite annoying. Especially because my support is autofilled. If you want to just play for as much of a lead on yourself as you can get, then you could do something like red Raptors into Krugs. But I was also thinking that they probably warded this, since no one was even here and no one spotted us, and it was kind of confusing, honestly. So I thought they might have warded this at least, especially since Ari walked up early to give me this ward, right? And since she warded like this, I was really thinking there must at least be someone in this bush if she just walked up here, right? So they should have seen that she warded. So there likely is a ward on red. And I was thinking, okay, in that case, maybe they'll like go straight to here or something. I'm like, okay, you know. Honestly, there isn't really a problem. You can still do like all the 3 camps and then go to your side. It doesn't really matter that much. Decide what you want to do. But at this point, I see him here, and this is not the best idea by him, as well, you might have guessed he didn't realize that his camps are gone. And a lot of the time, stuff like this can happen, especially in the lower ranks. This is, I don't know, probably like a diamond game, like D4 or something. I don't know. So we're gonna say the issue here is that people oftentimes have a problem understanding that when the enemy jungler shows up with 2 camps, right, somewhere, 2 camps done, and you can see which buff they did because of the buff duration, right? You need to also be able to then understand what they could have done based on the time that is on the clock, right? So for example, if at 3 minutes I gank as Karthus with 2 buffs, 2 camps done, it can mean I could have done any 2 camps. Well, but obviously the buff that I have, right? But other than that, I could have done any other camp, right? Because at 3 minutes, it's enough time to just walk around the whole map, basically. But at the time when I ganked this, it isn't. So it should be a very simple process for him to understand that this is gone. Or well, that his red side is gone. But if he were to do all of these 3 camps, right, I would just cycle back here and just take the Raptors again, as I should be chilling with that. Is what I was thinking as well. And I think it can be pretty decent to leave one of these camps up, because then if you cycle back into them, right, you can take that camp and really delay the spawn time by a lot, which will make it also so that they spawn at different times, like the Krugs and the Raptors, for example, and that means he will never be able to do Raptors and Krugs at the same time unless he leaves one camp up for a while. But then here we just end up with a lead, which is chill. So I go check this, or well, I go help this be pushed in, right? Go check if this guy's gonna like go in. He doesn't really go in too far. So I just help this guy push out. Why? Because I don't want this guy to like have to waste his TP by base TPing instantly right now. I think it's better if I just come here, I help him push out, and we're chilling, right? Otherwise he would have to base TP, and then still he would be risking it, you know, because you look at the map, right? As you can see, Jarvan was right here right now. So, and stuff like this happens, even though you know the scuttle will be gone, right? And you might want to just base and take the other scuttle. The other scuttle isn't that important. This is going to be a lot more of an advantage for the enemy team than the scuttle. Jarvan does show mid technically, so I could just let him do it on his own, but he could still get all in by Darius. My base here, I think. If you know that this guy is sitting here for way too long, right? You know this guy's gonna keep sitting here. For example, if enemy mid doesn't have TP or something, you could even go for his Grump here, but obviously he's not sitting here anymore. So went for the scuttle. It was gone. That's fine. We also check if he ganks spot, right? Find him. We find some play, but nothing really done here. No real engage here. It's okay. I think our Braum was probably griefing it or something. He was autofilled anyway, and he was not very good all game, so it is what it is, right? But at this point, it's just like, okay, so keep securing your advantage then, if you have one, right? So just clear your camps, chill, whatever. And then, since you have some kind of advantage, right? Like, look, we look at this, we see a longsword against a lost chapter. That's like pretty good, right? Like if we look, right? So we know Jarvan didn't base yet, right? So there are 2 options here, realistically. Either he bases right now, after we see him, right? Or he will base after his clear, right? A lot of time people end up doing like a second clear, especially in low elo. And that ends up putting them really weak on the map. They do get their camps off the map sooner, maybe, depending on what item they were sitting on in their base. But when you see someone walk into a lane like this and show, right, for a bit, it kind of shows that they're not really looking to recall, because there's no way he would be willing to spend this much time before his recall, because then he's like really far behind, right? So then if he recalls, or if he recalls after this especially, right, What ends up happening is that I can do a few camps and I can still meet him on the other camps. He might have items that are similar to mine at that point. Probably will. He can't really buy the best items here, but you get at least items that are comparable to my last chapter, right? Or your whatever you buy. Like if you're playing Evelyn, you would maybe have swords, I don't know, or a blasting wand and a dark seal or something, I don't know. Depends on what you chose to buy. But then what can happen is that I am level 5 at that point and he's level 4, right? Because he just recalls and he doesn't actually take any camps. So either I'm going to have a level advantage with same items, or I'm going to have better items. And either am or I'm not going to have a level advantage. In this case, though, because I already denied him quite a bit, right, on the first clear, and he only really got CS from the scuttles, I might even have level 5 over him, while he might be level 4. I think he got catch-up XP here, maybe, on one of these camps. He might have, because he got so much XP. I'm not sure, though. But he didn't get level 5, as you can see. So if I try to meet him straight on his wolves, right? So if I choose to do that, if you're a more PvP-oriented jungler, I mean, Karthus is pretty PvP-oriented as well, but something like Jarvan can be pretty hard to kill, as he usually always gets his EQ, and this guy still had Flash, for example, so it can be pretty difficult to kill. But if you're something like a Nidalee, a Kha'Zix, whatever, right? Whatever that can really fight pretty well and kill pretty easily, pretty consistently, you can abuse these things even a lot more. So at level 5 with an item advantage, if I walk here and meet him on his walls, right, when he's still level 4, that's like disaster for him. Because sure, he will be able to run away, but he will lose both of these camps as well. Here, honestly, I should have gone to his wolves. I was sure that I can get this Gromp though for free, and when I get the Gromp, I will be level 6 no matter what, right? So I was also thinking of the possibility of him maybe going on my bot lane trying to dive, right? So I wanted to get level 6 as soon as possible. But yeah, and also wanted to gank top before him. So would be pretty nice. Because the thing is also, if I go straight to his wolves, right, which would be a great thing otherwise, we will actually end up going top lane at the same time, which can be a pretty big problem for me in this scenario. Instead, I get a nice little advantage from this, and we're chilling. You can also realize that when people have worse items than you, or worse levels, or both, right, or whatever else, or maybe your champion just clears better, right? In this case, it's both of these things. A lot of the time, it's going to be a situation where if they recall and they go back here, right, they're going to only be done with these 2 camps when we're already done with these 3, and then you can sneak either one or both of these camps away from here. Especially if they look for a play or a dragon or something. You can usually sneak away 2 to 3 camps here very easily if you learn the timings of the champions, and when you might have a window of like, I don't know, 10 to 20 seconds, right? That is obviously going to be very specific to champions though. And a lot of the time it's going to be against these more ganking type junglers where you're going to have a better window. For example, as Evelyn, I would usually get this kind of a window against, honestly, a lot of these ganking junglers, really. Even some full clearing junglers, especially when people are looking for this camp into like play mid or dragon or something, you can really sneak away these camps quite easily. So he sneaks away this, actually no, I force him off it, and I actually got it. I thought he snuck it away while I was ulting. But yeah, at this point, you can kind of look for whatever you want though, right? The main issue I have here is my R is very low, and this guy's not so low, even though she's ahead, which means that she's not going to be looking so much for a fight. So me going to something like his red buff right now would be a bit special, especially considering that their bot lane is coming from base, right? So didn't really want to do that, but that is an option as well. You can try to meet them like that, because if you're something like level 6 and you're against someone who's guaranteed level 5, right? At the second buff spawns, both the first and the second buff, they're pretty much guaranteed to show up there. Sometimes what you will happen though is something like maybe they started on red at the start, right? And they already finished these camps like Krugs and Raptors, and they went topside when the red was spawning. In that case, you usually won't meet them, and you can just take the red buff instead, because they will not choose to return back for the red buff in time. They will instead choose to do something topside. But yeah, I think taking all of these objectives is like pretty chill as well. If you can take the dragon and the herald, it's like pretty nice as long as you can cycle your camps in between. But you have to realize that if you take these objectives, what ends up happening is that you give up one turn where you could either counter jungle or gank, right? And that's the concept of tempo really inside of League of Legends, where you have a turn to do something, right? And sometimes the enemy jungler will just give up their turn, or blunder it, or just do nothing on their turn, or do something completely useless, right? Like, for example, right now, on this turn, where I decided to do the dragon, the enemy Jarvan decided to do his Krugs. Well, okay, I guess. I mean, if you're really getting perma-invaded and you can do nothing about it, right? Then doing something like this can be pretty viable, because you don't really have a choice, so you're forced to trade your turns for something like this. So that you can at least get your camps. But in this case, I wouldn't really say that Jarvan is in that position. I think he just blundered a few camps away. And what we end up seeing is that he ends up extending this to be even worse, right? So now he's level 6. He still hasn't base, which is really horrible, right? You're with 1.9k gold. I also have 1.9k gold, yeah. But for me, it's not so bad, because I'm staying on the map and getting to play while I already have my first item, right? I already got my objective down and I'm chilling. He is forced to stay on the map with a longsword. I'm not sure who he's forced by though, probably the voices in his head, if you ask me. So it's something that I see people do a decent amount of, but not on the third clear. I only really usually see people do this on the second clear. So a lot of Evelyn players I'll see, they do a full clear, they try to do something, nothing works out, or maybe they get something, maybe they get double scuttle or something, right? But then they feel bad like recalling or something, because they're like, ah, but my camps are coming up again, and they do all of their camps again. Doing 2 camps can be pretty good, and then you can like reset and play for tempo. In lower elo, you can even get away with a full second clear, and then like reset or something, and that's still fine. But something like a third clear can be pretty bad, because now you can see that if I decided to go here again, right? So same pattern as last time, then same as last time, I would be beating him, right? Level advantage, item advantage, still beating, right? So in this case, I chose to instead work on this. And as I said, you have turns in League where you can do whatever you want, right? I could choose to do this invade, but then after this invade, if he lives, I could do this anyway from higher HP, right? But I could also choose to, well, I don't know. Could also choose to do this Herald first, right? And then see what happens, right? Or I could choose to just finish my camps and then recall and then like whatever, right? So you have like a few choices, and sometimes even multiple choices can be winning. For example, in this case, I think no matter what I do, it would be kind of winning, right? I could just recall after this because I had my mythic in base. After this Raptor camp, I could just recall. I could just buy my Leandries, and if I know that Jarvan isn't on the Herald yet, then pretty much always when I walk from base, he's not really going to be able to finish the Herald by the right time, especially not since my mid laner and my top laner should be able to move. I do quite like the timing though, as the top lane was pushed in and the mid lane was pushed in, so my laners can kind of help me. Azir is half HP, no mana, no TP, I believe. Yep. So with all of that information at hand, we can kind of say that there isn't really much of a problem for me, right? If I take this, especially since that denies pretty much every play that Jarvan has. So now, okay, Jarvan finally decided to recall, right? And now we are ahead by a bit more than 1k gold even though we only have assists and farm advantage. That's like pretty chill. But now we have to figure out how to really transition this, right? Here our top laner almost died. Be a bit disastrous. I think Jarvan smited this away. Yeah, he did. Funny guy. But when he does something like this, right? It's kind of like, okay, well, you use your tempo on this now, and how is this going to ever win you the game, right? Like the question is, we want to win the game, right? So if we're trying to win the game, how is us stealing away the scuttle from the enemy really going to make a difference? Like, okay, we make like a bit of a difference, but that's like a drop. We're basically losing top lane at this point. I mean, we can be sure we're losing top lane at this point. We're losing jungle pretty hard. We're losing mid lane. So really all we have going for us is bot lane. So we need to find some way to make bot lane work. We need to find some way to deny the enemy's win con of dragon. And we need to find some way to deny the enemy from using the herald. We ganked the mid and we got a shutdown, I'm guessing. We did. But would we say this is worth it? I mean, here we get like re-kill kinda. So it could be. But then we push out the wave. Okay, well, our Azir has TP, so maybe could be a way to play. But these two need to base, okay. So here we have a little bit of an issue, right? So since we know the enemy jungler, or rather the Karthus, if we're looking from the perspective of Jarvan, sorry, the bot side, right? When he has Herald, we as the bot lane should be thinking we need to be in lane and we need to be full HP so we don't die, and we need to never die to him or to his bot lane when he's on the bot side of the map. Same thing for the Jarvan. He needs to be thinking like pretty much the same thing. He needs to be ready to like fight and contest whenever I'm on bot side of the map, so I don't just explode this tower. Because this is like the worst thing that can happen. Even if my bot lane was like the lane that was winning for me and my top side was losing, you never really want to lose the bot side tower early. It's kind of never really gonna be ideal for you. It's gonna make it so either you're already ahead ADC, can't focus on taking more of these plates and taking this whole tower, or it's gonna make it so that the mid lane tower explodes to the fed bot lane as well, and the top lane, whatever, which is quite problematic. As each role kind of has its own identity in how they win games. So something like mid lane would win games through roaming around the map. So maybe taking control of these jungles, so the Karthus, for example, can't play. Maybe roaming around like this and preventing the bot lane from playing. Maybe taking this mid lane tower slowly, and so on. Something like top lane would win the game through taking this tower and then scaling up, getting their big stuff, showing up with some fight, but a lot of side lane pressure, really, right? A lot of the time, the top laner is looking to provide a lot of side lane pressure, especially after 15 to 20 minutes. While the bot lane has the interesting strength of taking objectives and DPSing. So we're thinking surviving long in a fight would make them DPS the most, which means the most damage at the end of the fight, which also should mean that they should be the ones carrying the fight if they live long enough. At the same time, they also are the ones that are going to be the best at taking the towers, taking the Baron, taking the Dragon, and so on. So with that in hand, or rather that in mind, we would say that this is also why usually people swap bot lane to the mid lane, because then they can move to all of the fights and show up at all of them to deal their DPS, and they can also DPS all of the objectives. So pretty good. But that's the issue with losing your towers, right? So it becomes a game where the bot lane will now be in mid lane, and even though this other bot lane was ahead and they scaled really well, the problem is they don't really have a good lane to scale in, right? So you can send Azir here and then send the bot lane to the mid lane, right? So send Azir and the Yuumi, but now they need to be covered. And the problem is you can cover them, but the Ahri is going to have prior into the Azir, right? Because she is already stomping here. She is levels up, items up, right? A lot of gold up, like 2k gold. So when you send them into the sideline, it's guaranteed that the Azir is going to be playing here. So when the Azir is playing here, the Ahri pushes out, and then she has the first move priority, right? If the Ahri moves at the same time, and then the Karthus shows up at the same time, and then the bot lane here engages at the same time, this bot lane is never going to be able to play, even if the Jarvan does counter gank. Now you can counter this by saying that the Darius could come, but the problem is the Darius is also behind. So he's also not likely to have much of a prio thing going on for him. So then the Zeri actually tries to fight this, the Jarvan also tries to fight this, and the Braum decides to do whatever that is. Not sure what that is supposed to be. My guy had some options and he chose the worst one. He chose to ult Jarvan and Q him, and he somehow missed on his own stun. And then he's ignite. Well, okay, can happen, I suppose. So then the Ahri shows up as well, and unluckily for the Zeri and the Yuumi, they can't really outplay this. So kind of sucks for them. Honestly, if the Ahri didn't come, it could have been decent for them. Even if they kill the Kai'Sa, Karthus, and the Braum, it's not really so winning for them, as there isn't really an objective to take, and also they won't be able to really damage the tower too much, especially with the mid laner being able to move over if she wasn't already moving by now. So it wouldn't be like that big, but losing all of the kills is pretty sad for them. Honestly, if the support Braum played normally, then I really think they would have any kills there available anyway, but that's a different story. Then we can choose how we can play after that, right? So this guy chooses to stay here and take this wave. This guy chooses to go back to mid and pressure this tower and take his own wave, right? Should maybe get a blade here, maybe. And I chose to farm. And why did I choose to farm? Well, because if I'm already ahead, I can get even bigger if I farm, right? Also, I can get like some pretty nice items. This dragon is going to spawn, but it's going to spawn in like a while. So I would prefer to just get as good of a base as possible, and then I would like to play F for the dragon. I also want to get the scuttle because it's going to give us vision and movement speed on the dragon, but this guy decides to go in and even smite the scuttle. So he should die for this. Let's die, and that guy dies, and then that should be a free dragon. But I'm solo HP, I chose to do this first, right? Recall. I'll see my bot lane. Should maybe do something that's not that. They die, okay. Great, right? So we have a Fed Zero Yumi, right? And that should be a way for the Jarvan to be able to have counterplay, right? Like the Zeri is even in items with with either me or Ari, right? She also has a Yumi on her, so you could even say that she's ahead of me or Ari individually, which would not be wrong at all to say. She also has a cooldown, so she probably does have pretty good gold value. They even get a dragon off this. Now, could I do something differently and like, I don't know, stay and do the dragon instantly? Probably not, as Zeri would probably try to fight that, and it could end pretty badly for me. Maybe not, but I don't really think that's worth it or required. So then, at this point, we think, okay, so the enemy did the dragon, right, with Jarvan. So where would the Jarvan go now, right? So when you think of a player that's not that good, you should be thinking that maybe he will be going straight for his Krugs, right? Just thinking, okay, well, these are the closest, this is the closest camp, and this is the way I can full clear to get to where, right? He's not really thinking of where to get, he's just thinking of where is the closest camp I can go to and what's like the efficient way to clear. So efficient way, okay, this is going to be like the fastest thing I can do, so I'm going to do this, right? So you can punish stuff like this by instantly after wolves here, going straight to his blue side, even though you don't really have that much prior, right? Because your mid laner is bot lane right now, and then the mid laner is in lane. You don't really need to worry about that, as if the Jarvan's not there, it's really not an issue at all. Even if the Jarvan is there, it's not such a big issue. Darius did end up checking this, actually. This could be the only issue, though, if the Stridebreaker Darius checks you, and the Jarvan is on top of him as well, and maybe even the Azir. But your bot lane realistically should move, so you can still do that. I chose not to do it here, didn't really care about it too much. Bot lane ended up taking their blue, pretty chill. Also, though, I didn't really want to take any kind of a risk, like if by some unlikely circumstance I end up dying here, I would not be too happy with it. But the odds of you dying are very low, so that is another thing you can abuse. So it also, when you do that, right, you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm losing efficiency because if he's here and I don't want to go for this play anymore, right, I have to go back here and do this. It doesn't really inefficient because, I mean, you lost like a few seconds, sure, but you forced him to be really inefficient because he couldn't clear all of these camps and he had to run straight here. And he's already on the losing side, right, so he doesn't want to be inefficient. It's not really gonna get him ahead if he just does the same thing you're doing. And really, I just make sure that the lanes are pushed out. This guy dies for some reason, and the other guy, whatever. That guy gets picked off by Darius. Okay, can happen. It's fine. Really just want to make sure I don't die to the Zeri for no reason. Would be a pretty big disaster. For some reason we decide to fight this and we die. Sucks, right? So that is the worst thing that we could have done, basically, right? As I said, we don't want to die to this. So now they have a win con. So we can have an interesting take on this, right? So when you do something like this, right, that you know you shouldn't do, right, and fight it, maybe we could have done something here, who knows, maybe not. But when you do something like this, right, the question is, how much are we losing right now, and what should we do next? So I'm losing my red side, I'm maybe losing mid tower, Maybe losing top tower, right? But for some reason they, like the Yumi went off and the Ahri got the charm off and got to actually kill them. Because they fought when they don't have cooldowns. But yeah, so we accept. Okay, we lost these things, so what can we do then? So I can do my bot side camps, I can maybe contest his bot side camps as they should respawn when I'm dead, and then we can maybe look for a play on the Zero Yumi while they don't have cooldowns, or we can look for a play on the other people who are not as strong, right? So I go straight to his camps, want to make a play on that, want to make a play on the guy that's not as strong, right? Unluckily, he gets away from me, but I'm gonna avoid these people because I don't want to fight Zero Yumi anymore. Not interested in fighting those creatures. I'm gonna fight them at the dragon if the situation allows for it, but not interested otherwise. I don't like that my teammates opened up mid lane, but it's not really up to me, right? Like, am I going to sit here and defend this? Or, well, rather run from bot lane where I was making a play to this? Probably not. Then, okay, Ahri has TP. Garen does not have TP, but it's okay. People thought the Darius there. We're chilling. So I want to make a pick on the Azir. This was warded, sadly. So I look for a pick. I get the Azir, but sadly they get me after they use Azir ult and Jarvan ult. But I can also poke down the Zeri, and they should be able to come here. But, as I mentioned, the Ahri does have the TP. So realistically, the Ahri could just TP here as well, which would have been a much better play, as it would force Azir to either walk into me or instantly walk here. If he walks here, or well, rather, is here, then he will be probably dead or walking into me anyway. But it's okay. She can also choose to save her TP, but the moment when you see these people, she should for sure TP, and she could actually make this play instantly winning, right? Is also what I was thinking, but she didn't really want a TP, but somehow I managed to kill this area anyway because she wanted to, like, I don't know, farm the wave. I think she didn't want to walk into the tower, and she wanted to, like, avoid my passive by, like, being here somewhere, but then she didn't realize I was actually reaching her with Qs anyway. I don't know. Maybe she thought she would dodge them all? I don't know. Not really sure. Can't really say. But okay, so at this point, we actually got the dragon, right? And what would you do? Is the question, right? So as we got the dragon with this, there's a very simple idea that we can also call out to just go to Baron. Because if you think about it, this guy's alive in 13 seconds, this guy's also alive in 13 seconds. That means it's going to take them 13 seconds longer than us to, like, arrive here. So I can arrive there at pretty much the same time as my bot lane. My Ahri could already be on it right now, like she could already arrive there, or she can go after this wave, whatever, right? Up to her, really. I think after this wave could be better. But with all of that in mind, right, we could pretty much already show up here. And if the Kai'Sa didn't do the mid wave as well, right, we could show up there with Jarvan still not having respawned, and while having a Liandry's Karthus, a Kai'Sa, we should be able to at least get it low or force a fight. It could be beneficial anyway. Especially when enemy shouldn't have too many ults. We can make them walk into us, and we're also really over leveled, like 14, 13, 13. Could be pretty decent. Braum has ult as well and stuff like that, and Ahri's getting it really soon. But our Braum was hitting the enemy red buff solo, so can happen as well. In the next game, I think I did do this though, where when the enemy was not able to respond to it, I just insta-called the Baron, we just snuck it away, and the game was instantly won. So if I remember, I'll show that as well real quick. But yeah, the rest of this game isn't that interesting because we already got the Baron. So after you get the Baron, usually the game should be pretty free. Mainly because the Baron both gives 1.5k gold to the team, and it also gives pretty much everyone in your team a pretty much free level up. Oh wait, we didn't get Baron last time, but we got Baron now. So after it's like free. So, but this is like Baron anyway, since everyone showed a bot lane, so nothing to really say about that. Let's take Baron, you chill. Some people just choose to die, I don't know, they love dying. Just chill there. But there isn't really too much to say anymore at this point. It's you don't really have a game to play. If you're behind and the enemy gets Baron, it's kind of just like sucks, right? I had a similar situation in another game, so I'll show that real quick. Or well, not a similar situation, but like a good Baron situation, let's say. I think it was this one where the game just ends because of Baron. This account was pretty interesting though, because this account, I think I was 13-2 on it when I got Diamond, or 14-2, and my LP gains are not it, so not really too interested in this account. But anyway, the position here is that at 20 minutes, you're playing a game where your mid laner is doing like okay, but then your mid laner is doing better. Your top laner is doing pretty good, then your top laner is not doing that good, but your top laner is obviously not the brightest little star. Maybe it's not that evident actually from the scoreline, but I can say that straight up. And your bot lane is a decent amount ahead, though not too much. This is 3k because of Draven, but otherwise it wouldn't really be even close to being as much. Anyway though, so we get to a position where we killed enemy Sona, and there's nothing really going on right. The Fizz is just like recalling whatever. The Kai'Sa's like bot lane, okay, right? I think this is the one where this happens. Oh, is it the one? No, this is where we all went, Baron. Oh, it's not the one. Boring. No, wait, that's not the one. Sorry. Which game is it? It's one of these games. Is it this one? I think it is. Is it this one? Might be, actually. Could be. Quite likely to be. Honestly, I don't have the best recollection of my games sometimes. Just remember like something happened. I think it's this one though. Yeah, okay. So we went for the dragon. The top laner is ending a little bit, like very big bit actually. I am stealing a lot of the enemy's jungle, like a lot. But she is also getting some plays in some locations. Top lane. The mid laner is like chilling. The mid laner has a bit of farm though and some kills, so it's really too much of a lead. So if you really look at this, it's like okay, this guy's like very ahead. I'm like pretty ahead. My mid lane is slightly ahead. My ADC is like decently ahead because it's Draven again, and some farm, but yeah. So we end up going for this dragon. We go for a dragon, right? We try to take it, whatever. This John is just sitting here. For some reason, we're allowing this. No one really felt like either completely pulling the dragon out or warding this or whatever. So some stuff happens. We barely get the dragon this time, thankfully. And then you can see, okay, so John is here. Ari was like here somewhere. I think we also got info of that through, yeah, because she showed on the tower and she disappeared. So obviously she's coming, right? Then you can kind of guess, okay, well, everyone's gonna show up here, right? My Volibear is like chasing again, classic. He's like fighting a bit, okay, chilling, right? But the enemy team won't really know if we run here. So we just run and we're like, okay, well, let's just try to take this. And it would be really nice here if we had my sweeper up or pink. But it's fine because based on what the enemy does, we're going to find out what they do or don't know anyway. And most of the time, unless the game is a pretty decent elo, at 20 minutes to like 21 minutes, the Baron isn't really going to commonly be warded. Usually they're going to end up warding at like 20 minutes and 30 seconds at least, or maybe like 21 minutes, 22, something, you know. Like they're going to remember, well, Baron is a thing, so let's ward that. But especially if the dragon was spawning before that, usually all of the wards are going to be concentrated on that side. So then we can see that these people are fighting here, and we're just like, okay, well, let's just finish the Baron then, right? So in this situation, you already kind of know, well, we're probably going to be able to finish it. And when you get the Baron, thing is, even when your teammates died, it doesn't really matter that much, right? And this is going to be a big thing that you can abuse, because if you realize when you can like duo it, when you can like kind of solo it on some champions, when you can do it as 3 or something, like who's strong and who's able to like do a decent amount of damage to it, and so on, you can find a lot more situations where you can sneak it away, or you can just force it or something, right? And it can be really huge. Because if you look, okay, so 5.6, 10k gold, 9k, 10.6, 6.8, right? Look at this. Everyone got a 300 juicer. Then we just look at the XP that this gives, and it's so insane. Like, I was barely 13, and after it, I am almost 14. I'm basically 14. My Draven was like a bit more than halfway past 11. Look at this after it, and he's like almost halfway past 12, right? So as I said, this basically gives everyone a level, right? It's not exactly a level, it's like, I don't know, 80% or something, but still really, really good, right? And when you get this, it's basically a game over. And the main issue isn't even that you get this, which is a pretty big issue because of the XP, the gold, the stats that gives, right? The AP, AD, whatever. The really big issue is the enemy team has nothing to play for at this point, right? Because you look at their really fed Yone and you just ask yourself, well, where do we put this Yone now? Okay, we can put him bot, and okay, but then even Volibear can just sit here with Baron minions. It's going to be pretty hard for Yone to like clear them all. Like, he's not going to one-shot the wave. I mean, okay, he can like maybe kill it, and then maybe he can try to dive the Volibear, maybe. But like by the time that he does that, it's going to be pretty easy for us to respond, right? And if you only have to respond like that, it's going to be really simple. Well, if he one-shots every wave and he insta one-shots my top laner as well, that's not so simple to respond, right? So, can be a pretty big thing. Especially because the enemy team can't actually pressure Baron, so while he's side lane, we don't actually care about anything on top side, right? Like, okay, take it all. I don't care. Like, if we get the Yone, chill. And at the same time, our pressure, all of the mid lane, top lane, whatever, when we're like pushing out, it's going to be like way greater than otherwise, so. That issue combined with the fact that they can't get the gold, the XP, they can't get the like pressure of actually being able to take on objective and so on, makes it so that the game is like really simple for my team to play for the next few minutes, even though they're still kind of struggling. But it's just way too easy, right, for a while to play. So then, I mean, not for some people, because some people decide to do whatever this is, and some people are like late to the fight, but either way, you end up in free scaling and advantageous positions, and then after free scaling and advantageous positions, you usually are able to take stuff. In this case, we lost the fight, okay, happens, but not really after, right? Like, even though we lost the fight, that's really up to the way that we played it, right? I think my team just like misplayed or some shit, who knows? But if we look at the gold values now, Draven is suddenly like even with the Yone, I'm even with the Yone, right? My Talon's getting closer, right? And all of this is really from the play. So a big thing to take away here is realizing the importance of understanding champion strengths, weaknesses, or like, especially with the builds that they're playing, while also understanding tempo. And tempo is kind of a stupid word that League players made up, because realistically you could just call it like time advantage or something, right? And it wouldn't really be wouldn't really be too difficult to say. I mean, tempo is like really simple to say, but the understanding when people say tempo is pretty meh, and also the usage of the word tempo is pretty meh. But usually it's used to describe time advantages and turns, and that would really just mean, okay, I'm doing my 3 camps, you're doing your 3 camps. What's the tempo next? I'm ganking, I'm taking your 3 camps or something, huh? I don't know. I'm basing, I'm like doing something, and then maybe I'm taking my 3 camps. That means that I spend all of my tempo on farming, and you spend all of your tempo on like whatever. And then, okay, next I'm clearing, and then, okay, maybe I'm ganking or something, who knows? But you can see League as a turn-based game kind of here, but then you have some champions that cheat a little bit. So for example, Karthus, right? He clears so fast that he actually gets to maybe like make your turns shorter, right? So that you could say that Karthus is a champion that makes your turns shorter or his turns longer or something, right? But it also means that his farming turns are much more valuable. So for example, we can say, okay, well, Karthus cleared all 6 camps, but I only really got to clear, I don't know, 5. Right? and that's already if you have a decent player. And also like, okay, well, maybe we did like 3 camps and we did like a play, but the play was actually allowed to be a shorter duration only if we wanted to like still try to make it to our top side before he actually takes stall. But there are many ways to play in League and many positions to be in, depending on what the lanes are like and so on. And the common situation really to happen is if you have like a weak laner and a strong laner or something, right? Then maybe a dive or something, or a 3 camp dive or something. Usually commonly right now we have a lot of 3 camping going on into a dive or a play or something. Most commonly something along the lines of Raptors, Red, and Krugs being taken into like a bot lane play, dive, like a top lane play or dive or something if you're like on this side of the map, or an invade on the bottom side here. There are some interesting clears you can do against that though, that I would like to mention before I end the video. So one interesting clear against that is, for example, doing something like red into enemy blue and Grump, or red into your Raptors into enemy Grump, depending on what kind of a champion you are, or even doing like all 3 camps and then going here, which would be the standard thing that we have been used to doing. At the same time, you can also choose to do some other interesting things, but I'm not really sure if they're that good. But you can for sure choose to do something like a wolves into Raptors or red or something. Preferably would do like wolves into Raptors into Krugs or something into invade. You could do something like that as well, which is also an option that you could have, right? And really that will heavily depend on the types of lanes that you have here, and also on the type of type of jungler the enemy has, right? It's also going to depend a little bit on the type of vision you have at level 1. So if you know if this river is warded or not, and if you know that you well, rather I should say, if you got any vision downs, for example, you got a vision, they're Raptors, they're red, they're like blue side or something, right? That could help you a decent amount, especially Raptors, because that could tell you a lot about enemy clear. That's why Raptor wards are so valuable right now. So having a Raptor ward at say 120, or having it when the mid laner pushes out a little bit, like a wave or two, and then they decide to ward over its wall, can be pretty valuable, or when they walk like this and ward anyway. Either way though, you can use these clears a lot to punish, especially the like these 2 clears where you do like red Raptors or just red into enemy blue side, because as I said, a really common clear right now is to do Raptors red into Krugs, and if you do that clear, right, and then you look for a play or look for invade or something, right, by the time you look for a play, the guy should already be done with these, right? And if you're done with these, you can also choose to do wolves, or you can choose to do just like a play on this side of the map, right? And technically you're kind of getting a forced turn here, because when you make this play, right, and they make their play, what happens is they realize, oh, well, he either started on his blue, right, or he already took away my blue. Now the question is, will they realize that you took away their blue, or will they think you started on your blue? That's a thing to ask yourself, right? I'm not really sure how many people would realize which, because a lot of the time I don't have this exact variation, but rather I have something like them doing this play and then them like, I don't know, whatever, doing whatever, or them not even getting a play and then them going to the blue side, realizing, and then, I don't know, like, we meet up, I don't know, they die or something, and then they run to my blue side after that or something. Can happen quite a bit, but... So, what we could have happen here, though, is they could either recall after a play, right, and try to go to their blue side, in which case they realize everything is already gone. You should get this scuttle and your blue side for free, and in that case you are pretty much just really hardcore chilling after you do your full play. If though they decide to go straight to your blue side, then there are a few options kinda based on if you realize this before they go there, or if you realize this after they go there. If you realized that they would go to your blue side after the play or clear or whatever before, then you could also recall here. You could buy like a component, say a, I don't know, longsword or something, I don't know. If you're an AD jungler, if you're an AP jungler, maybe a dark seal. And then you could run straight to your blue side and you could actually contest this, and oftentimes you could even kill them or something, especially because while they only have red, you have red and blue, which means you have better mana, better cooldowns, but that's not really that important. The more important thing is the component that you buy. A longsword or a dark seal can make a decently big difference to your damage in the early game. At the same time, if you didn't realize, right, before, and you just realized after, you can still take all 3 of these camps. You take all these 3 camps, right? And you can choose to either recall and go here anyway, and then like hope that your laners move for this. If not, you might just like lose like 2 camps, and you might only keep your wolves. Realistically, though, in that case, if you're only really going to get your wolves to stay up, then you might as well just do the scuttle and then maybe run here anyway. But realistically, it's better to even make a play on mid or bot than to waste your time on trying to contest this 1 camp if your laners were already unable to contest like these camps at all. But yeah, that's like an interesting clear, I guess you can use if the people in your elo are actually doing this kind of a clear, and you can find out if they're actually warding level 1. Because, for example, here, like, not really, right? A lot of time it happens. So, if though they do ward this a lot, they do ward this a lot, and if they warded this level 1, right, your Raptors, then you're not really gonna get away with this clear as easily at the start if you don't make it to the Raptors and clear them before the ward is placed or after it. So if people ward level 1, it just doesn't work, right? You have to go like red into like here and walk like this. This can also still work. Preferably though, you do this in champs that do have a way to get over the wall. So for example, something like a Jarvan or a Nidalee or something can jump over this wall and do this. It's like pretty simple then. You can also walk through here or walk through here depending on if they have a ward. Though the red Raptors thing, if you do it fast and you have a champ that clears them pretty well, right, you're usually going to be able to get the Raptors before the mid wards if you're like fast, right? Because for example, if you look at this talent, right, he got level 2 now and he's crashing the second wave, and maybe he would like ward right now, right? And if he wards right now, we could have already been done with this. Like even this is Joanny, right? She already finished red and Crux. So if she went Raptor seconds, she could have already gotten them, or even if the Talon went for a ward faster, she could still most likely get it done before it. So the interesting thing there, though, is that if the mid laner actually does go for a ward at that point, right, and the Raptors are already gone, then usually the assumption is going to be that either you did red into Raptors into Crux, right, for a play on this side of the map, or that you started Raptors. It's a second assumption that might exist, or they might think that you did red into Raptors into Grump, which is the clear that people used to do a while back for tree camping, right? Or some kind of like red Raptors, wolves, blue, something. But either way, they're really going to think that either you're tree camping this way or that you're tree camping into this, right? Which is pretty interesting because it might also make this guy ward, and if this guy wards and they don't see you at all or something, then they're likely going to assume that you're here. But if you don't show up here for a while, they're likely going to assume that you went topside anyway, right? And this can really confuse the enemy and also make your invade itself more unexpected, right? Because you can get more advantage. Also Graves and stuff. Those champions quite like stuff like this, especially if your champion is able to jump over walls, as I said before, as in this blue side, you have quite a few walls to jump over in general if you do end up getting, let's say, found by the enemy jungler, right? So if you do the blue and the blue person and the Grump, then you can end up running away through here if you can jump over walls. Or if you do Grump and then blue, you can end up running through this wall or something. Either way, though, that's going to be all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you learned something, then like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.